Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today I have a very exciting and amazing chess game that was played between Lc0 and me. This game showcases some significant strategies that I employed to attack on Lc0's Kingside. The game is full of excitement and fantasy, so let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with knight f3, the rate opening. The rate opening is clever because black has only 3 good options to consider, d5 e6 or knight f6. Lc0 went with d5, and after d4. Playing knight f6 would be a good move, which is what Lc0 played. As you know, Lc0 is the top female chess AI and has incredible chess accuracy, so, I decided to go with c4, leading to a position similar to the queen's gambit. If you accept my gambit, I will consider e3 to attack the pawn, and black can usually play c5 to counterattack in the center. However, in our actual game, instead of capturing the pawn, we had e6. This e6 move blocks the bishop's diagonal but also has significant advantages in the game. A couple of moves later, you can see that after Lc0 castled, she could actually play b6, after something like e3, which was actually played in the game, she can go with b6, putting the bishop in fumetto to stabilize the structure, but instead, she went with a6. This a6 move has the disadvantage of slightly unguarding the b6 square, which is why I played c5 to put pressure on that square and thereafter consider b4. We had knight d7 with the idea of playing e5 in the future, and Lc0 considered knight h5 to kick out my bishop. That's her strategy. Lc0 is doing her best because she has a PhD in chess strategies. We have bishop e3 followed by knight h5 and queen c2. Attacking the pawn since the knight is not on f6 to protect it. She replied confidently,
"Hey, what do you think? I will lose to you despite having the black pieces. I do not fear you. I know that g6 is a very bad choice because it blocks the bishop's diagonal and also gives you the opportunity to consider h4, and in the future, you will play h5. Therefore, I will not consider g6. I will play h6. That's my idea to protect my king's structure."
"Hey Lc0, you are good at defenses, but you know what? When your pawn is committed, my knight can go on e5, so, let me play rook g1, and I will consider g4, knight e5 and I will even break your structure and ego by attacking the kingside along this file. I might even play long castle and join my other rook on this file. That is what I have been waiting for since the first move of the game." In this position, many chess players might think of considering b6, since the pawn will be under attack by many pieces, but you know what? Once the pawn is pushed forward, another square becomes weak, the c6 square will be weak, and as the knight moves back, I will play knight e2 to protect the pawn. Even playing queen e8 to attack the pawn might look good. But rook c1 can protect the pawn more, and my pawn on c6 will create a vulnerable situation around your queenside. You can see that this single pawn is paralyzing your 3 major pieces. They are restricted and working under the table. So, going back to the position, we discovered that playing b6 is a very bad choice. That's why we have c6. Lc0 commits a pawn move, and you can see that from b7 to the center and the kingside, all pawns are located on the light squares. Lc0's own light square bishop is paralyzed, while my bishop is very active, as if he studied very much at Harvard University and has a bright future. You only have activity on the dark squares for the bishop, queen, and knight. That's the reason why I played g4 with the idea of playing g5, as most of the pieces are just restricted. After castling, rook here, we have b6. She tries to break the structure with her queen, but it's too late for her, like arriving too late for an exam. Therefore, I will play g5, attacking the pawn along this file. After capture and recapture, you can see that the knight is creating much pressure on the black kingside. Black might be tempted to capture the knight right away. Let me show you the variation, otherwise you cannot understand the position because your brain is not capable of playing chess, only understanding 2 to 3 moves ahead. After capture and recapture happen with the rook, pawn takes c5 followed by rook g1 will come to attack along this file. Many chess players, like 200 ELO rated players, might think of playing g6, but it is a very bad move because I can sacrifice my bishop on g6, since the queen can arrive on g6, it leads to checkmate in a few moves. Returning to the position, g6 is not viable, so many strong chess players might consider queen f6, which is also viable. After capture and the king goes here, I will simply move back my knight to e2. This leaves a question mark about whether you capture the pawn or not. If you dare to capture the pawn, it will provide me an open c-file, where I will pick up the pawn attacking the rook. As the rook moves, queen d6 check will arrive, the king cannot move, and as the queen moves, rook g8 will lead to a checkmate, and the position will be over. Your dream of defeating Stockfish will just vanish. Alright, so going back to the position, after playing knight e2, we discovered that capturing the pawn on d4 is not viable. Some may consider playing c4, as it blocks the queen's diagonal completely, but you know what? While one gate closes, another opens automatically. I will play queen c3, sacrificing my bishop right away, because consequently, I will play queen a3 check. This check is dynamic, like a thunderbolt in your position. After c5, I will capture the pawn, and you have to capture my rook. You have no other choice because c6 is coming with a discovered check. So, after queen takes rook, it's not rook takes queen that I will play. I will play c6 check first, attacking the knight with a discovered check. No matter where the king goes, I will capture the queen on the next move and pick up the knight thereafter if I get the chance. That's my strategy, and with the queen up, I will win the game easily. So, let me share an inspirational quote with you. When you can't control what's happening around you, control what's happening inside you. So, returning to all the variations, we discover that playing bishop takes knight will not reduce my kingside attacks. That's why Lc0 played bishop c6, to protect that pawn and make some significant advancements. However, my knight is creating a lot of pressure on black's kingside, which is why I played queen e2 with the idea of swiftly moving the king to h5, followed by queen h7. That's what happened in the game. Queen h5 came on the board to check. If you dare to consider c takes d4, it might seem desirable for many chess players. However, despite my knight being under attack, I will ignore it and go for a higher plan. In life, you have to sacrifice small pleasures for a higher gain in the future. That's why I will play bishop h7 check, forcing the king to move, and queen takes f7 will lead to checkmate. Black will sing an elegy for the black king. Alright, going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the pawn, or even playing a normal move, is not viable. This is why Lc0 captured the knight to reduce some of my queen's attacks. We have rook takes g5, gaining control of the file, and many chess players might make the mistake of playing knight f6. This is a common move when players do not think deeply and just play a move that looks good and poses some threat. You have to consider whether your king is safe and if your pieces and structure are secure. In this position, the black king is unsafe because queen h6 can put significant pressure on the g7 pawn. That's why playing g6 is not viable, as I can make a strong attack with bishop takes g6. After the king moves, rook takes g7 will follow, attacking the black king. If the king moves to e7, although it is the best move, bishop takes g6 will attack the f7 pawn, and the game will be in my hands again, causing Leela to potentially leave the game in frustration. So, I have to play with less accuracy to avoid upsetting Lc0. Although she is a super chess engine, playing knight f6 is a very vulnerable choice. That's why Leela played king f8, and I went with rook g1, attacking the pawn. Again, playing g6 is a vulnerable move because the bishop can usually capture the pawn there. The combination of the queen and rook will create significant pressure, like a dinosaur attacking. Let me illustrate the variation happening in my mind. Let's say black plays g6, sacrifice your bishop, because it is meant for such sacrifices. Consequently, queen h8 will come, and with the king completely vulnerable, having no defending pieces, knight f6 does not matter. After a series of checks and capturing the knight, the king moves, and rook g7 check will arrive. The rook blocks, and pawn takes c5 will eventually protect that square. After playing rook takes d7, the position will be fragile for the black king, making it evident that the king's position in the middle of the board is unsafe. Even if Magnus Carlsen played this position as black, he would lose utterly. So, going back to the position, we discovered that playing g6 is a very bad choice. That's why Leela played t takes d4, attacking the knight, and I captured the pawn on g7. Whether you capture the knight or not, queen takes f7 will lead to checkmate. Be careful and try to defend against the virus of defeat. Leela tried to escape from that situation, and instead of considering queen takes f7, I played rook takes f7, the best move in the game. As the king moved, the knight moved to e2, attacking the pawn. Many experienced chess players might consider c5, which is also the best move. As the bishop moves, the rook goes to b8. Some chess players might consider queen b6 to attack the pawn. That's a beautiful move, but you know what? After playing bishop a4, executing the plan by playing queen b6 might result in very bad circumstances. For instance, if you play queen b6 to attack the pawn, I can sacrifice my rook on d7, sacrificing the rook, illustrating its power like a superhero jumping from sky to sky, not a monkey but a hero. Thereafter, bishop takes d7 and queen e5 will force the king to move to e7, and then I will play a very bright move. Can you guess what that move is? Try to think a little bit. The best move is queen g6 check, and you can see that the king has only 2 squares to go to, and no matter where the king goes, queen d7 will lead to a checkmate, and the game will be over. So, going back to the position, we discover that playing queen b6 is a very bad choice. Since your knight is under attack by my rook and bishop, you have to deal with that. I would have played rook e7, attacking and protecting simultaneously. After capture and recapture, we have rook g7, gaining control of the 8th rank. Many chess players, who might be inexperienced or careless, might think of playing bishop e7 to exchange rooks, but you know what? Your king is in a terrible condition. After the rook exchange, queen e5 will arrive on the board, and your king in the middle of the board will face checkmate. The game will be over. So, let me motivate you by sharing an amazing quote. One smile can start a friendship. One word can end a fight. One look can save a relationship. One person can change your whole life. So, going back to the position, any bishop move is not possible. That's why we have rook b4, attacking the bishop. Here again, many chess players might foolishly consider b3 to protect the bishop because the bishop is very crucial to the attack along the diagonal. However, Lc0 can make a significant attack by exchanging material on the a4 square. After the exchanges, d3 will come, attacking the knight. As the knight moves, queen f6 will arrive, attacking the knight and pressurizing the f4 pawn. The position will be very cramped and critical for me because black holds a significant pawn advantage in the center. Going back to the position, playing b3 is a very bad choice. That's why we have bishop c2, and Lc0 played d3, sacrificing a pawn. Why? Because playing d3 provides Lc0 a very good diagonal to attack with the queen on f6. That's what happened in the game. And playing b3 is not a good way to protect against the queen's attack because black can respond with c4, attacking these pieces. After the exchange, the queen will get an open attack on white's kingside, and I will face the consequences of losing the game. The game will not be over, but it will be a draw, but I don't want a draw because I want Lc0 to do something exciting. Realizing that the pawn is under attack and playing b3 is not viable, another categorical chess player might think of knight c3, but it is also a vulnerable move because after queen takes f4, followed by the king's move, queen d2 will arrive to attack the pawn on b2, making this position very vulnerable for me. Even playing queen e2 to protect that pawn indirectly looks logical, but it doesn't matter because rook takes g2 will force the king to move, and queen c1 check will arrive. If the knight blocks on b1, then you know what? Lc0 will capture my queen and hold a significant advantage with the queen up. I don't want to lose the game. So, going back to the position, we discovered that the knight block on c3 is not viable, which is why we have queen h8, indirectly protecting that diagonal. After the bishop moves, we have rook d8, and exchanges occur. We have c4 followed by the bishop moving back, the knight coming to b3, and after a couple of moves, you can see pieces exchanges and the knight capturing on d4. I have a passed pawn outside of the boards after the rook moves, and after a few more moves, you can see that I maneuvered my knight. As the king moves up, we have rook d3 and king c6, the game progresses with moves and improvements, and at the same time, you can see that I have 3 pawns on the king side to advance, and I have to deal with this idiot e6 pawn. In a few moves, we have rook g4 and a knight check. I played a5, sacrificing the pawn because I will play rook a4 to attack the pawn. As the king moves, we have knight c5 check, checking the king and pressurizing the pawn on a4. I will make another outside passed pawn, and in a couple of moves, you can see that I pick up the pawn. After a few moves, we have rook b4, maneuvering pieces and attacking the b3 pawn. Your pieces cannot make any progress because I will generate 2 connected passed pawns. And I also have pawns on the king side. With the pawn majority, I will win the game completely. I will conquer Lc0's position as soon as possible, pushing the a and b pawns on the board, giving checks, and you can see that my pawns come to f7. I will pick up the bishop, promote it to a new queen, and checkmate on the h7 square. So, it was a very beautiful and amazing chess game played between Lc0 and me. I hope you enjoyed the game very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. With folded hands, I bow down to you.